Today's number, 25%. That's how much more likely the market thinks it is that the US government will announce the discovery of aliens in the next 8 months than that traffic through the Strait of Hormuz returns to normal by the end of April, which, as market statistics go, is not especially reassuring and, frankly, a very strange thing to say out loud. I'm Professor Benjamin Smart, and welcome to Polymarket Prof, the channel where we look at what prediction markets tell us about current affairs and test whether ordinary investors like us can actually profit by following the wisdom of crowds. Today, a trade update. After yesterday's episode, where I argued that the Straight of Hormuz would likely remain closed, I bought 4 positions. I bought no on a permanent peace deal by end of April, no on a permanent peace deal by end of June, no on traffic in the Strait of Hormuz returning to normal by end of April, and no on traffic returning to normal by end of May. Now, overnight, 2 things happened. First, Iran announced that they would not go to Pakistan to resume negotiations. And I suppose fairly unsurprisingly, JD Vance also announced that he would not travel. And that caused both of the April contracts to spike, fortunately, in our favor. So we're going to take some partial profits on both April positions. Not because I think the thesis is wrong. In fact, of course, this makes us just more likely to be right. But because the point of this channel is to see whether we can treat Polymarket like a genuine investment portfolio, and that is what a disciplined investor would do. If these were ordinary stocks and they jumped overnight on new information, I wouldn't just sit here pretending that risk management is cowardice. I'd trim the position. So that's what we're going to do here too. But first, let's just discuss why I think the basic thesis still holds. As I argued in yesterday's video, the Strait of Hormuz is Iran's main leverage, and I don't think they're going to give that very easily or very cheaply. Their demands are not things the US can realistically concede on, and if that's right, Iran has every reason to hold on to the one bit of leverage that really matters. So I still don't think Hormuz simply reopens and everything goes back to normal. Trump can tweet whatever he likes. He can say that Iran are claiming that they're closing the strait, but in fact the US is closing the strait. But of course, Iran closed the strait before the US did. Trump can threaten, basically war crimes, destroying civilian infrastructure like power stations and so on. But I think he's going to be very reluctant to actually do that. And that seems to be playing out because he constantly tacos, right? Taco, Trump always chickens out. So I don't think Hormuz simply reopens and everything goes back to normal. And at the same time, thankfully, I think Trump is very unlikely to follow through on some of his more extreme threats of war crimes, like destroying civilizations and destroying civilian infrastructure surrounded by people. His base doesn't want another Middle East war. So it's not because I think he's suddenly become a decent person overnight. I just think he doesn't want to be destroyed in the midterm elections. So where does that leave us? Well, my read is this. The strait likely stays disrupted, oil keeps rising as supply remains constrained, a permanent peace deal is still unlikely, but the really dramatic escalations that Trump sometimes threatens on Truth Social are pretty unlikely. So still bad, still unstable, still probably not resolved by the end of April. Under Obama, it took John Kerry around 2 years of intensive negotiations to get the JCPOA signed. 2 years. Under that deal, Iran agreed never to develop a nuclear weapon, reduce uranium enrichment capacity, shrink its stockpile, and allow continuous monitoring by the International Atomic Energy Agency. In exchange, the US relaxed some sanctions. Trump then tore up that agreement, Iran began rolling back those commitments, and now, in this latest round, JD Vance appears to have given up after less than 24 hours. Less than 24 hours. John Kerry, 2 years, JD Vance, basically 1 extended working day. So you must obviously do your own analysis, and I don't want to get too political on this channel, but I have very little confidence in this administration's ability to negotiate a rapid, durable, America-favorable deal. That said, an investor has to stay humble. You can have a strong thesis and still be wrong. In fact, if you're doing this properly, you should expect to be wrong sometimes. I still hold the May Hormuz contract and the June peace deal contract, but the market is telling me something important. If I simply hold those all the way to resolution, they may well fail to make money. And there are some reasons for that. Trump, I suspect, is desperate to end this conflict. The midterms are coming. He doesn't want the political conversation to be about Iran. He doesn't want it to be about oil prices. And he definitely doesn't want another Middle East quagmire hanging around his neck. So he will try whatever he can to manufacture some kind of exit. Maybe they work in some diplomatic magic. Maybe they accept what is actually a much worse deal for the US than Obama had, and then just shout a historic victory until the headline moves on. That is possible. And from an investment point of view, accepting that you might be wrong means doing the boring adult thing, taking profits when they move in your favor and closing trades, even at a loss, if the facts change. That isn't weakness, that's discipline. So that's what I'm doing. I'm closing 50% of both April contracts. That locks in gains of 38% and 26%. And I'm still holding the remaining half into resolution on those April contracts. Why? Because for the Hormuz contract to lose from here, the 7-day moving average of ships moving through the strait would have to go back to 60 ships. That would require basically 7 full days of complete normal traffic before the end of April, and there are only 8 days left in the month. Negotiations have broken down, time is short, and the path to this trade failing now looks pretty demanding. Now, I could still be wrong, of course. Markets love humiliating confident people. That is one of their core functions. But based on the information we have right now, I'm comfortable holding the remainder. So that's the update. The broad thesis still looks intact to me. Iran is unlikely to give up its leverage cheaply. A permanent peace deal still looks unlikely, at least in the near term. Hormuz disruption remains plausible. And whilst Trump might bluster, the most extreme escalations still seem politically difficult. But even when your thesis survives, good investing is not about swagger. It's about managing risk, staying flexible, and taking profit when the market gives it to you. So that's what I'm doing here. As always, this is not financial advice. It's just one investor thinking out loud with a prediction market account and an increasingly unhealthy interest in tanker traffic. If you enjoyed this video and you want to follow this experiment in whether prediction markets can be used as investment vehicles, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, would you have taken profit here or held everything to the bitter end? I'll see you on the next one.